Hey everybody, welcome to the world building stream. How y'all doing? Jose, I just wanted to say I really liked your verse, man. Let me read it for everybody. Dwarven clans, raise your hammers. Dwarven clans, hit the anvil hot. Let the anvil sputter ambers. Let the anvil ring in your ears be caught. That sounds very Tolkien-esque. It has that same meter. Can everybody see and hear me okay? How y'all doing? Welcome to the weekly world building stream. For those of you who are just joining us, if you exist, hey, Jose. We are designing, brick by brick, an epic two-party Dwarven campaign called Helm and Crown. So we're talking a lot about Dwarven culture and the history of this nation. Lots of different topics. You can find all of our videos here on the channel. My name is Timothy, Pro DM, and we're going to go through one topic tonight. It might be a 2-hour stream. That's what we normally do. It might be a little shorter because it's kind of a smaller topic. And we're going to be talking about Dwarven customs, specifically Dwarven funerary customs. So this is something that we have talked about a little bit here and there. We've hinted at, but I've never actually devoted the time to sit down. So I think 2 weeks ago we did Dwarven wedding customs, and I was anticipating that being a short stream as well, but it really ballooned into this massive topic about matchmakers and lineage and all that stuff. So we may be in a similar situation here where I think this is a small topic, but actually it's quite a large topic. Yeah, so we're going to tuck into that in just a second. How is everybody doing? How's your weekend, Jose? Talk to me, man. I'm going to get some water, actually. You tell me how your weekend is, and I'll be right back. I always forget something. Okay, awesome. So we're going to tuck into this topic. Dwarven customs, Dwarven funerary customs. So what do we have? We have, when a dwarf dies, their body lies in state for 7 days until the Gulyavari, the corpse collectors, arrive and ferry the body away to Zamadan, the secret mountain. Through the Doreji, the doors of death, they take the body, and it is never seen again. Myth says that they are taken to Janhol, the hidden hall, and dwell there amongst the gods. So the questions we have facing us tonight: who are the Gulyavari? How do the dwarves practice their funerals? Do dwarves believe in souls? And what about resurrection? These are our 4 topics. I feel confident they will balloon into other topics. But it's always kind of been vague here. I liked the idea. So I think let's talk about the history of this a little bit. So the original conceit with the notion of the Gullivari and the notion of the hidden hall is that in their mythology, the dwarves believe that heaven is a place on earth, basically. That their conception of heaven is that it's not some astral distant realm. It is a physical place on earth that you can go to, but that none save the gods know where it is. It's so expertly hidden that only those who have like been granted the wisdom to see it can see it. So that to me, it really ties into the whole dwarven mythological idea that like they made the world, right? They don't live from some distant place. They live here in the place that they made, right? And so I liked the idea that when you die, it's kind of like going to Valhalla in Norse mythology. You physically go to this place, right? But that begs the question of like, and I like there being a physicality to it, right? That the dwarves might know roughly where it is. They might know what mountain it's on, but the actual door, kind of Moria style, is so well hidden that no one can find their way in, right? That was like very pivotal to the whole conceit here. Oh, got a little bit of a delay. You guys see that? A nasty non-COVID virus all week. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Looks like there's a little bit of a delay on my end. Okay, so first things first, do they mummify their own or leave the body whole? Do they burn the body as the Norse do? Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. So let's start asking these questions. Do they mummify? I kind of like mummifying the body. Do they leave the body whole? Do they burn the body? Well, I don't think that they burn the body. I don't think they burn it because if they burnt it, then I feel like because it's all about the physicality of the body, right? It's like taking the body to the place where it's going to be buried or it's going to rest. They're called the doors of death, or more properly translated as the doors of rest. Rej means rest in Dwarven, so doregi, right? The doors of death, or the door of deaths, essentially. So I think the body has to physically be there, right? I tried to connect to the video and was met with a +2 minute unskippable movie preview. Sorry for being late. Oh no, that's okay. No worries. Is there still delay? Doesn't seem too bad. Okay, it's catching back up. That's really weird. I'm sorry, Christopher. Thanks for coming. And no, you're not late. It's a stream. You can wander in and out whenever you want. Hey, what's up, Shadowhunter? Thanks for coming. Ritual mummification, sacred ash. I think mummification is kind of cool. Because I feel like, yeah, I think mummification is neat. Mummify the body. I like the idea that it's not, yeah, it's kind of like Shadowhunter alludes to, it's not the same process. You know, it's not like the Egyptian mummification. Oh, perfect. That's great, Christopher. I'm happy to hear that. It's not like Egyptian mummification, I don't think. I think they would have their own version. Because, again, we have magic, right? So they can have, like, magical processes as opposed to, I feel like it being so gory and then like pulling the organs and stuff out. I think this is always an interesting topic, actually. In a world with divine magic, you know, how efficacious is their like regular medicine? Like, is there any impetus in a fantasy D&D world to develop surgeries and medicines and anesthetics when you can just magically cure that stuff, right? I had a longer thread about this way back when coronavirus started, but the idea of like, how would a D&D world handle this, right? They would have a cure, right, for diseases. They would have like a panacea. And I actually think that we talked about this a little bit in their history, but that doesn't give you immunity. You know what I mean?
Ooh, that's cool, Jose. That's kind of neat. If they leave the whole body, we can take the Mayan custom and create a full jewel carcass enveloping the body, like a sarcophagus, right? That's cool. So yeah, it makes me think that like probably, sorry, I was on a tangent, but probably some of the Egyptian style mummification isn't at play here. I don't know a whole lot about mummification, especially in like other cultures besides the kind of stereotypical, pull the brain out through the nose thing. But I like the idea of the body remaining pristine in some way. That they need to like keep it together or keep it preserved for whatever reason. The question is sort of, why? Mummify the body. So like let's talk about the soul and the spirit. So a dwarf dies, right? Ooh, it could even be a full reflection of how they looked in life, kind of like a 3D stained glass window. That's neat. Is it like... I think... I like that idea, Jose. Warfare definitely has... They would, I guess. So Shadowhunter says, dwarf culture on warfare definitely has some well-developed battlefield medicine. They might, but like, wouldn't they just have magic? Wouldn't you just have clerics in the field? Right? You could make the argument maybe that divine magic at that level is difficult to access, right? But if you have sort of an Eberron approach of like wide magic... I don't know. That's what I've always wondered. Like, how would how would medical technology develop in a different way? Ooh, with gases? That's interesting. Okay, let's talk about it. So I think the sarcophagus, once a dwarf dies, they are entombed in a sarcophagus. And I think they lay in state. You know what I mean? Kind of like when a world leader does, and everyone comes to see them. Like they're laid in a particular area of the hold, and all the dwarves can come and like pay their respects to them, right? And they are laid in state, so all the clan can come and pay their respects. So I think the notion of the sarcophagus and the material that it's made out of, I think, is interesting. The idea that like the kings and the queens and the royalty, the thanes, might have a sculpted, maybe even a jeweled sarcophagus that you could see them in. But I also like the idea that like maybe a poorer clan who doesn't have the material, or a poorer dwarf, that like maybe, ooh, what if dwarves? Yeah, that's cool. What if dwarves that are nearing their like masterwork, their death, right, save money or save material? So the way the Dwarven economy works is that like rather than having coin, they have what's called like yield. They pull out from the mines and they can use that to build their stuff. So like I wonder if dwarves have to save against their own coffins, save material to use in the creation of their own coffins, their own sarcophagus. I like this idea. It's considered gauche to make your own sarcophagus because it's like about how you're remembered. I like that. So some sarcophagi, some sarcophagi, I don't know, are made from simple stone, either shaped or not shaped. Like the poorest ones, I think maybe just have like the name carved on it, right? Or like the family's like crest. But then the wealthier, the more you've saved, the fancier the sarcophagus you can get, right? Others are made from precious metals or even transparent gems. Yeah, that like you can, the more you squirrel away, the nicer your coffin will be, essentially. Cool. You think the Gullivari are the ones that make the sarcophagus? It takes them 7 days. It's the only thing that they create. Yeah, so let's talk about the Gullivari, because this is what I never understood about them. I liked the notion of there being like, there has to be a way to get the dwarves to this physical place, Okay, maybe we'll back up. Let's get to the Gullivari in a second. But my question is more like, they need to go physically to Valhalla, right? To Janhol, the Hidden Hall. Why? Like, once they die, are they like given everlasting life in Janhol? Are they entombed in Janhol forever? Right? Like, I do think that there's like some element of mystery that like wherever the secret door is, which I believe is called Jandor, the hidden door, no living dwarf has passed it, right? So they don't know what's beyond there, but what do the dwarves believe about the place, right? Like, what happens when a dwarf dies? Could it be like, because my instinct is obviously that like your soul would leave your body, but what if dwarves believe the opposite? When a dwarf dies, their soul becomes trapped in the body. It can no longer animate it. Right? It's kind of like those old myths about vampires, right? That was that old like cultural belief was that like you could if like improperly buried or whatever, your soul might end up stuck in your body. I like the idea that it's not like this transcendental like, oh, I've left my body, that the dwarves believe that you remain in your body, but you're almost like your forge's fire goes cold, right? The forge goes cold. You cannot work the bellows any longer. Could be like about, they could make it all about fire, right? Like your fire is extinguished. Ooh, have a ritual to prevent becoming undead. Yeah, is extinguished. So they believe that. They believe that, like, I like that idea, that they think, okay, when you die, rather than your soul leaving your body, your soul is trapped in your body. It's like contained in your heart or whatever. So then the Gulyavari's task is to come and bring the bodies to Janhol, and they have some belief that once they're in the afterlife, their soul can either be like, oh, can their body be rekindled? Like Umbor will awaken them? Yeah. Once dead, only Umbor can bring a dwarf back to life. Yeah, I love that. So that answers your resurrection question too. The Gulyavari bring the deceased dwarf to Janhol and disappear into the mountain. Legend says they give the dwarf to Umbor, who reawakens their inner fire. Yeah. So I even wonder if we could maybe do a linguistic idea. Soul is the same word for fire. I'll have to look it up, but I kind of think that's cool, right? That like they think of it as their inherent like kind of soul spark. Jose says maybe the after death is about a celestial forge where each soul is heated until it's part of a new ore for new god armor. That's kind of cool. I sort of like the idea of them physically living there, you know, like that. It's again, it has that Valhalla sense that like eternal life. The notion of being like melted down is kind of cool. Maybe that's something about like your body or your. Ooh, so then what's interesting about that, Jose, is that you could do a thing where, let's do this. Oops, sorry. Let me know if you can't see that. I always forget to look at the OBS. Formatting. But I think the idea is that like the sarcophagus is not only the vessel that is brought to, that carries the body, but it is also a gift from the dwarves, from the deceased dwarf, because it's their material, given to the gods, right? So like if you are wealthy and you've saved a lot, then you're offering on board. It's almost like payment. They wouldn't use those words because they think payment is kind of low. But the idea is that like if you have this beautiful crystal sarcophagus, that's a rich gift to give to the gods, right? It will like brighten their halls, and it will, you know, and it's sort of like the workmanship is what matters there, right? So the kind of the fancier and better the sarcophagus, the more sort of penitent you are seen to be, right? Like, wow, look at how much money he saved up to make his offering to the gods that much more impressive. I love that. You know, maybe they say, okay, they'll melt it down and use it in their armor or do whatever. Yeah, that's cool. Okay. So they mummify the body. Let's go back to that real quick. So they mummify the body, and the idea here is that they are trying to preserve it. They have magic, so they have gentle repose. Umbor rekindles them in the end of time. Well, here's the thing. I think that's maybe what they think, Jose, but I don't think anyone has ever come back from Jean Hole. Oh yeah. So let's talk about that. That's a good question to add in here too. So resurrection we'll get to, but what happens at the end of the world? I have some ideas about this. What happens at the end of the world? So they mummify the body. Let's talk about this. I really liked Jose's idea of like the sarcophagus as a container for preserving gas, because like you could just do boy, what is this spell? Not spare the dying, gentle repose, right? So I like the idea that like gentle repose is an option, but maybe not all dwarves have access to it. You know, that there might be a reason to like seal it up. Yeah. Because I think that's cool that they would be like airtight, you know? The sarcophagus is meant to be airtight. Like, would gentle repose... This is the weird thing about magic, too, in D&D, is it's like, if you think of it like technology, did everyone have all the spells right away, or were the spells, like, slowly developed? Oh, I realized I never made this joke. Like, the reason I'm in all black, and there's a black backdrop, and I have black hat, is that we're in mourning for the dead dwarves, right? I totally forgot to even mention that. Yeah, we're in mourning right now for all these dwarves that died. Because it's super hot, so I really shouldn't be wearing all of this, but I had to make a joke, and then I forgot to make it, so great, here we are. So I like the idea of the gas as like a preservative. I think that's cool. We have gentle repose. Pair of copper pieces over the eyes to prevent decay and hold out necromantic intentions. Yeah, that's cool. They don't really have coins, but I could see them having some variation of that, right? Like, is that where that came from? Like, do they... Because traditionally it's, like, used to pay Charon, right? The ferryman. Could it be a thing that they, like, use to pay the ghoul Yavari, right? Because they're basically psychopomps. Like, they take the dead. Coins over the eyes meant as, like, a pittance for the ghoul Yavari. And we'll talk about that. I think there's something kind of cool you could do with that. Yavari. The ghoul Yavari, the corpse collectors, which is what it literally means. Ghoul means corpse, and then Yav means to like gather or collect. So ghoul Yavari, right? Yeah, gentle repose is the spell. So I like that it's meant to be airtight. That like maybe they dress them in runes that withhold any necromancy. I like the idea of them paying the people who do this, which we'll talk about them in a little bit and whether they're actually people or not. I could see there being like spells that they would cast to prevent there's like sacred runes around the edge, like, you know, anyone who breaks this seal or whatever will be cursed, that kind of a thing. Sarcophagus is meant to be airtight. Okay, coins over the eyes. So they have some sort of a mystical property. I liked the notion of ash, because we could pump gas in, but I also think the notion of like filling the sarcophagus with ash from the forge
is interesting, right? Or do they fill the sarcophagus with ash from the forge? This is like gray powder, you know? That's neat. Do they fill the sarcophagus with ash from the forge? But I like that it's different. They don't pull the body, they don't pull the organs out or any of that stuff. They don't embalm them because they're only meant to last. Like the body has to be perfectly preserved, you know? So maybe gentle repose is a thing that they have since invented, or gentle repose is like a human spell or something like that, right? And that the dwarves use this noble gas and they use these other means, these non-magical means to do it, right, back in the day. And either they have since started to use it, whoever can spell gentle repose, right, either they use it to they now use it, or like they shun it, right? It's like that's the human way of doing it. Like this is meant to be done traditionally with no magic. I think that's kind of neat. Okay, so let's talk about the Gulyavari. This is going a little quicker than I thought, but let's talk about them. So this is kind of the elephant in the room here, right? It's like, who are they? Okay, I have that question. Like, are they dwarves? Or are they something more? Oh, that's a great question, chat owner. So there isn't an exact god of death, but the closest god is Kavish, who is the god of drinking and of storytelling and memory and clan and community. She's the goddess of death. She's the death domain god. And what's interesting is that, and this is what I think we could talk about, right? Like, what is Kavish's role in all of this? It's another good topic. What is Kavish's role? But I actually don't think, in Death and Funerals, I don't think that she is hugely important in this part, because I think that the dwarves don't really see this as death. That, like, death sort of has two phases. Death affects the person, but again, in a very sort of pagan Norse way, it's about that person going somewhere better, going to the afterlife, right? Yeah, what role does Kavish have? Let's scroll this down. Going to somewhere, you know, where they belong. Oh, sure, I can't scroll it anymore. There we go. There are more questions down there. Here, let me try to, like... There. Right. What happens at the end of the world? What is Kavish's role in Death and Funerals? I think Kavish is all about... the memory. It's like the Gulyavari come to take the dwarf away, where Kavish is there to, like, console the clan. It's about what they leave behind, because once they functionally go to Jean Hol, they're never seen or heard from again, right? So, like, Kavish, I'm sure, is involved in some way, but she's much more about, like, the after effect of death, like what a dead person leaves behind, you know, their memory and their story and their deeds, you know. So we'll get into that. That's interesting. But let's go back to the Gulyavari for a second. Jose says, I like the idea of them being muzzled if the Gulyavari are dwarves. That way they are recognized, but also not able to tell any of the secrets. Yeah, in some way they have to have taken a vow. So the god of secrets for the dwarves is Zamut. She's the goddess of war and chastity and the law. And she has basically sworn a vow of silence. So they could in some way be associated with Zamut. But it reminds me a little bit of the Silent Sisters from Game of Thrones, so I don't really want to do exactly that. I think my instinct is that they aren't dwarves. So the other kind of undead component here are the judges. The judges. Or are they related to the judges? The judges... are 7 thanes from the 7 great clans from the Vanished Time, who made a pact to enforce the words in stone. The 7 laws laid down in the prayer to Umbor. Their pact was so powerful Their pact was so powerful, it followed them after death. And now one appears whenever the law is broken. They dwell in the barrow of 7 judges, believed to be somewhere beyond Jean Door, the hidden door. So that's what I had about the judges, that they're basically these like undead revenants, right? These sort of Death Knight justices that come forth magically whenever anyone breaks one of the 7 laws, right? So what's interesting about their judicial system then is that it's not really about a jury of peers. There is like an empirically correct, magically infallible justice system, right? That like comes out and treats with these things, but there are only these 7 laws that are inviolable. There are plenty of other terrible things you can do that the judges don't care about, and that stuff maybe a Thane might adjudicate or whatever. But the point is that the judges come from Zamadan, the secret mountain, right? The birthplace of the dwarves. So to me, it seems like, do you make the Gulyavari similarly undwarven? Because you kind of have this question of like, if they are dwarves, what dwarf is going to like agree to join this order? Like, why would they do it, right? You could have it be like a prophetic thing where, like, the 7th child of the 7th child of the 7th child, whatever, right? You could have it be a kind of like a Night's Watch thing where, like, Dwarven criminals or whatever are sent there. It could be like a form of punishment to join the Gulyavari. But it feels like this thankless, again, kind of supernatural life that makes me wonder if it's better to decouple it from actual living dwarves. I like the idea of the Gulyavari being unsettling and uncomfortable, that they're like a reminder that's like that soon they will come for you, right? Like the Grim Reaper, right? They're this kind of disquieting, unsettling presence. They are sort of welcome everywhere that there is death because they need to be, but no one wants to invite them in, right? And that to me says that they aren't dwarves, but maybe that's more interesting if they are mortals and they still are kind of treated like they're not mortals. That's kind of cool. So I can't decide because I have a tough time imagining the Gulyavari being like, oh yeah, Jose, that's funny that you say that because that's what the judges are. The judges are suits of armor. Their bodies have rotted away, right? So yeah, it would almost be the same thing. But it's that same notion. So that's my question is like, I like them being inhuman because I feel like no one would agree to do that. It's this like tireless, thankless job. But I can't quite crack like who they are or why or how they came into being. I don't want to do exactly the same thing I did with the judges where it's like people who made an agreement, are they actually a form of undead? Are they constructs? Were they like made by dwarves at some time to do this? That's kind of interesting. Are the Gulyavari constructs? Yeah, they could also be like chosen after death. Yeah, are the Gulyavari constructs or undead? The notion of them being constructs, I think, is interesting. That, like, because it implies, like, a history. It implies the idea that they maybe used to be real dwarves for a while, right? And then dwarves stopped wanting to do it, or they're, like, almost you had, like, a Night's Watch thing where there were fewer and fewer Gulyavari every year, and they started to, like, make, like, automated Gulyavari, because it was, like, again, this sort of thankless, grim job, I kind of like that because it separates them from the undead, right? Like, I think you could do them being chosen after death or them being spirits, but it feels the merging of a dwarf volunteer and a fairy, so they are magical with memory, but with memory of what they should do. Yeah, I mean, I think that I think if they are constructs, they were made so long ago that no one quite remembers how they were made or what
their specific powers are. I think there's something interesting about it being like this automated system that the dwarves don't control anymore. You know? Like, they were made, and then they were kind of, like, set loose, and now they have these orders. Like, this is their programming, and they just do it ceaselessly. It's like this machine that can't be stopped. Because, again, you get, like, there's an interesting mechanical idea with the judges that, like, at some point in the campaign, some character is going to break one of the 7 laws, and then the judges are going to show up, and it's like, oh, they're still working, right? They were made long, yeah. So, but what I like about that then is that similarly, the Gullivari would still be active theoretically. Like, if a dwarf dies in the game, right, then the Gullivari would come and fetch them, and it would be this moment of like, oh, they're still operating. You know, that's kind of neat. Did anyone in the chat ever play Alien Isolation? Let's see, Shadowrunner says, if constructs then made by the dead dwarves, which is unsettling in the details if you knew one of the masters. Yeah, Jose, you're exactly describing the judges. 7 clan chiefs of old that sacrificed to be eternal servants instead of going to the afterlife. Yeah, that's the judges made a pact. That's exactly what the judges are. You keep like having these ideas that are great, but we almost use those exact ideas again. Great minds, you know. I think that they're not like, I think that they're in the uncanny valley. I think that it's almost like they're more like terracotta soldiers, right? Think terracotta soldiers. Obviously artificial, but eerily real. You know, that they like, I think they made like however many 100 or 1,000 of them. They were made during one age. Yeah, I wonder if that happened in like memory. But I like the idea of like, you know, every dwarf in Coombe. One for every dwarf in Coombe. Maybe made by Umbor himself. See, because again, I think it's something that they made. I like the idea that they are like weird sort of automatons, you know? I think that like they made constructs to do this thing that no dwarf wanted to do. Yeah. Was there a problem with the original Gullivari? That they started to make these? I like the idea that they're terracotta soldiers. That they're like, this is a function we have passed on. It's like a job we automated out of existence. Eerily real. You know, made from clay or stone or something. I like that they eerily resemble dwarves. That's what's interesting about the terracotta armies, is if you look at them, like each one is modeled after a different person. It's not like the same mold that they just used over and over and over again. Like they're all unique, and they're all very lifelike. And I really like that idea. They're all unique and all lifelike. Because like they could resemble people, but I don't think they do. But I like the idea that they resemble like people that you don't know, right? 7 to the 7th power, Gullivari. 8,000, how many is that? 823,543 terracotta soldiers. Someone had to show the automatons the way. Yeah. Who built them? Like, I think they have to be made by the dwarves. I hear what you're saying, Shadowrunner, right? Like, how would they know? I think that there were once Dwarven Gullivari. Like, it was a task performed originally by real dwarves, right? Then, over time, their numbers dwindled and dwindled. And they, oh yeah, I think they were made by the original Gullivari, by the Dwarven ones, right? Like their numbers dwindled and dwindled, and then eventually they started making these constructs that resembled the bodies they were bringing back, you know? So there was a period where, like, you know, your father died and the Gullivari came to, the Dwarven Gullivari came to pick him up and then took him away, and then later you're like, you died, and then you're like a terracotta Gullivari who looks exactly like your father shows up to pick you up, right? Like they based the visages on these dead dwarves, right? Yeah, they began to create. I've not seen Hellboy 2. Is that similar? They began to create terracotta automata. It might not actually be terracotta, right? But that's what I'm imagining. Terracotta automata to take over the roles. Eventually, the living Gullivari died out completely. And now these automatons are doing the sacred. And I love the idea that it's like these soulless, like, robots essentially are the ones that are doing this like sacred task. They don't understand that it's important. They don't know any of the stakes. They don't get it. And there's this debate, like, are they doing it properly? You know what I mean? Like, are they, no one knows, right? Like, that's a big question. Are they doing it right? Are they doing it right? Like, people used to trust the Gullivari, the Dwarven ones, because, like, they were people with souls and they could believe in things. These are just machines. So in some sense, yeah, they're probably doing it right because they were programmed to do it right. But at the same time, like, they don't care. They don't have any investment. It's just a job. It's just like it's just programming, right? They're just machines. Can they perform this duty without souls? Without faith or piety? Yeah, I really like that. I really like that this job is now being done by these people that don't give a shit about it. Not even give a shit about it. They can't. They're incapable of it, right? Like, imagine if we had, like, robot priests. You know? I think that's fascinating. Okay, so that's who they are now, the corpse collectors. Which is funny because I think there's a monster in D&D that's a construct, and it's called the corpse collector. It's like a huge, horrible, you know, like, automaton with, like, bodies sticking to its spikes. But I like that this is our version of that, right? The Gullivari. Okay, so let's walk through the steps here. So a dwarf dies, and then I don't think that their coffin is made by the Gullivari, because I think that they are, again, too impersonal. So I think that the dwarf dies, and the Gullivari leave Genhol to go and collect the sarcophagi. And meanwhile, while they're waiting for the Gullivari to arrive, I think that the dwarf's apprentice makes a coffin, for a sarcophagus for them. I think that's how it's traditionally done. The sarcophagus is traditionally made by the dead master's apprentice. If you weren't a master, a parent, a friend, a spouse, someone else, like another loved one in your life, could have made the sarcophagus. Another loved one could make the sarcophagus. How do you spell that word? I'm probably misspelling it every single time. I'm sort of curious now, actually. Let me do a spelling and grammar check. No, ignore. Sarcophagi. Okay. Yeah, there. I did it. I know what I'm doing. So you have a certain amount of time. With the judges, they always arrive magically. I think that the Gullivari do have to physically walk there. So depending on how far away you are from Zamadan, I think that it might take more or less time to do it. It kind of raises the question of, like, if their automata Do they get attacked? You know, like, can they defend themselves? What if one breaks? They could be, like, magically sort of programmed that, like, if one... You know, they have, like, a locate object thing. So they're in their, you know, barrow or whatever, and someone dies, Gullivar is activated, it goes, starts walking across Coombe to head towards the thing. Probably they go in groups. Or you could have a fun thing where if it's just one, that it just carries the sarcophagus back. I think they just magically know, Jose. So that's the thing about the judges too, is that they just magically sense the presence of the law breaking. It's totally magical. I like that idea because it's this unstoppable thing, right? Presumably they like are using... Makes the warrior's death more sudden and requires the time to preserve the body, makes sarcophagi. Yeah, exactly, right? If you don't know about it, I feel like maybe there's a tradition. Ooh, that's cool. Mummify the body. Clans traditionally keep... This is another option, right? Like... Clans traditionally keep iron sarcophagi around in great numbers, ready for sudden deaths in battle. That, like, if you can't... Every birth is recorded in a special record the automatons can send. That's cool. Yeah, there's like a list or something like that. Yeah, like a census. Yeah, the judges just magically sense. I kind of like the idea that it's a similar power that the Gullivari have, that there are similarities between them, but they're kind of the same idea coming at it from opposite things. That, like, a judge it's just a soul, right? Whereas a Gullivari is just a body. But I like the idea of these, like, iron sarcophagi that, like, the clan keeps a bunch of them in reserve if you either don't have the material or you die suddenly and you're unable to, like, you're unable to save up or use your own yield. But then maybe they embellish it, they carve it, they do something right. You still have that length of time, but I like the idea that the clan will provide... Like, if you join the militia, right, they pay you in, like, iron that you can put towards your coffin. When you join the militia of a clan, or the clan guard, when you join the clan guard, you are paid in iron that is used for your sarcophagus should you fall in battle. Oh boy, now I'm, like, thinking too hard about sarcophagus. Sarcophagus. Should you fall in battle. Yeah. So the Gullivari arrive, and they take the body away. They take the sarcophagus away, they bring it back to Zamadan. I like the idea that if a Gullivari is, like, beset or destroyed, I think it's hard to do, because they're presumably made of, like, you know, metal or stone or something. I think it's hard to do, but it can be done. Then just another Gullivari is dispatched. So you will sometimes get cases where a body will lie in state for weeks, if not months, before the Gullivari arrive, right? Because they just get there when they get there, essentially. Yeah, that's cool. Okay. And they take it and they bring it back and they bring it into Janahol, and the idea is that Umbor, like, breathes new life into them. Okay, yeah, I think that's cool. All right, we still have a few more questions, but we are moving through this faster than I thought. The census of dwarves, birth of blood written in stone glyphs, the religious rituals that judges in the Gullivari can find you. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Are there stone censuses? Sensei. Notice me, Sensei. Okay. Are there censuses? Census, I don't know. What's the point? Is it censuses? Is there a census? Is there a census? A database that allows for each clan, that allows the judges and the Gullivari
to locate dwarves. Notice me, Sensei. To locate dwarves who have broken the law or died.
Yeah, that's cool.
So let's talk about the end of the world. Bum, 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 bum. So this event is called the Shattering. So the idea here is that it has a very that all cultures, all the major religions and cultures in Undune, have a Ragnarok style end of world event. You know, we kind of have Revelation in Christianity. Well, I was raised Catholic. I'm not Catholic anymore. Christianity has Revelation. I don't know that Judaism has one. I'm not familiar enough with it. That or Buddhism. But, you know, the Norse definitely have Ragnarok. And so the idea here is that because Yogg is a presence and a real threat, that every culture would in some way incorporate this idea into their mythology. So in the case of the dwarves believe that they made the earth, right? Yes, the last hammer falls. The dwarves believe that they made the earth, that Jan-Hol always existed. That's where they awoke. But outside of Jan-Hol was just formless chaos and malice. It's just like swirling pandemonium of, you know, destruction and creation and nothingness. Ragnarok. They believe that, like, basically they spent so long in Jan-Hol. For those about to Ragnarok, we salute you. I salute you, Sildari. They got so tired of each other's presence in Jan-Hol that they decided to they had to get out, right? So they thought, we will tame the chaos outside. So Umbor created a prison to contain the chaos within, made out of their rarest metal, sacrosteel. And they managed to trap the chaos inside of there. And because that chaos was so greedy, it wanted to devour everything and destroy everything, they named it the Dwarven word for greed, which is Vog, V-A-G, Vog, which of course, you know what that means. But then the cage itself was ugly, and it wasn't something, it wasn't anything to look at. You could go out onto it, but there was nowhere to explore. It was kind of cold and sterile and lifeless. So Umbor's wife, Ignon, had the idea to create a whole world to contain it, to basically like decorate or adorn the outside of the cage and to give them something beautiful and wondrous to explore. And she like poured herself into the project and dove into it. And when she finally ended up making it, it was so grand and so unbelievable in scale and scope that she literally poured herself into it to give it life. And so Ignon was basically consumed by her own work and is no more. But the dwarves believe that she is still in the earth whispering to them, that she has foreseen everything. She has foreseen the beginning and the end of the world, right? And that she is with you, even though you can't hear her. Umbor then went out and he saw everything and built, and then all the rest of the history of the dwarves passes after that. But they do believe that there will eventually be an event called the Shattering. And that's basically when the lock that Umbor put on its cage will eventually rupture, and Vog will burst its way out from its containment, and it will destroy the world. It will break everything. They see Vog as being so greedy that it wants to break every beautiful thing that the dwarves have made. So they believe when Vog... But I don't think that they call it Vog. I think they just think of it as it is greed incarnate, right? So we all know when Yogg breaks free, not only will it shatter the world and swallow it all in chaos and malice, but everything the dwarves have made upon the earth will break and crumble. Swords rust, statues collapse, marriages end.
that like it has this, you know, an age of broken shields and wolves when brother fights brother kind of a thing, right? That like if Yogg represents destruction, that everything they have made, not just like the world, but like on a molecular and like metaphorical level, everything is destroyed or broken or ruptured. So the idea is that when this happens, hopefully all of the dwarves are ready, and they have basically been kind of second cominged back into Jean-Hol, right? The dwarves believe that they will receive a sign. That they will receive a sign from the gods when the shattering is nigh. Yeah, vows get broken, exactly. When the shattering is nigh, they will flee en masse to Jean-Hol and be welcomed within before everything breaks. So I think that they do believe in kind of a... So if you know your Norse mythology, you know that Ragnarok, the big battle, isn't just like, okay, today we're fighting. There's like a 3-year period beforehand when this thing called the Fimbulwinter, which is this like eternal long night style winter, falls over the lands. And that's kind of when everything goes to crap, right? Before the giants and the gods come to terms and fight each other in the field, there's this like Midgard kind of undergoes this sort of mini apocalypse of its own. So I think that they believe in a similar thing, that the shattering is, yes, the destruction of the world, but it is also like this period where vows will be broken and statues crumble and swords rust, and the dwarves are hopefully all taken into Jean-Hol before that happens. There's a myth about Heimdall. Here, let me do this. It's a myth. Heimdall is abroad when this happens, and he rushes back to Jean-Hol. Yeah, right, it's 2020. Yogg on his heels. So Heimdall is the god of lies and deceits and thieves, right? He's like the lazy god, the trickster god. He's kind of your Loki analog here. Zamut guards the door. A silent Zamut guards the door. So Zamut and Heimdall have an interesting relationship. Heimdall always wanted to bed Zamut, but Zamut, being the goddess of chastity, never let him. He tried once to persuade her, and she said no. And he tried once, and she refused him again. She has a vow of silence, and he then basically, on the third try, realized, hey, what if I just told people that we had sex? Right? I'm just going to tell everyone that we did, and then everyone will believe it because you can't deny it, right? Like, so she like, it's all about your reputation, right? And keeping your peace and not caring what other people say about you. So the reverse myth then is that Heimdall is abroad and he's not in Jean-Hol when the shattering happens. He comes rushing to the door and he begs and pleads to be let in, and pleads for Zamut to let him in. To permit him inside. Umbor asks who's at the door. Not Umbra, Umbor. Stop that. Asks who's at the door. And Zamut says nothing. Thus, Heimdall is swallowed by Yogg and never regains Jean-Hol. He's the one god that dies, right? That doesn't get back inside, and it's sort of a moral about Lastlock, and it's a moral about coming back to your home, right? And never neglecting it, right? Don't stray too far, right? Because what if the shattering happens while you're out, and then we won't let you back inside, right? That kind of a thing. Anyway, so the point is that the dwarves believe they will be ushered into Jean-Hol before the shattering. So my question is, do they believe that they will all die? Like, do they believe that the gods will give them a sign? Do they believe that the Gulyavari will come and fetch them? Ooh, what if it's a thing where if Umbor has remade them, right? So if the idea is that when you die, your internal fire is extinguished, and Umbor in Junhole like basically reinvigorates you. The dwarves believe that when the dead return, no, I'm not giving Heimdall no chance. He had his chance. The dwarves are pitiless. Let's see. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Does she give him weapons to defend himself? Maybe. I'll think about it. That when the dead return, the shattering is upon them. So rather than the idea that like Umbor brings all the dwarves in and like reawakens their fire, that when the shattering comes, he sends all of the dead dwarves back into Coombe to summon the living dwarves, right? So like if your father died, right? And then, you know, the end of the world is upon you, your father returns and leads you back, right? The hosts of the dead guide the living back to Junhole and safety. Yeah, I like that. I think that's cool. Nice. So one thing we haven't even talked about at all, we have all this death stuff. Let's talk about funerals. What is Kavish's role in death and funerals? So how do dwarves celebrate? I know that Shadowrunner said something. He said there's something about chanting. Chanting the story of the departed's life. They are ascending from the apprenticeship in this world to work as a master in the next. Oh, that's really cool. Yeah. I like that analogy, right? Like in this life, you are an apprentice. You are but an apprentice. In the next, only in the next shall you truly be a master. I love that. So what does a dwarven funeral look like? I like the idea that it's centered around like them, A, building the sarcophagus, and B, like awaiting the Gulyavari, right? Are kind of two of the core pieces of it. Let's see. Once dead, the dwarf is laid in state, and there venerated by the clan for a certain amount of time, however long it takes for the Gulyavari to arrive. Ooh, yeah. Bardic College of the Dead. Is that a thing? Is there a death subclass for bards? There should be if there's not. But that's perfect for Kavish. Not to agree to arrive. So I definitely think that like it's got to be a thing where there's like initially is the funeral, because like I like the notion that there's like a big chunk of time there, right? That like, oop, I'm totally out of frame. Here I am. What if it's just puppets? Yeah, so I love dwarves. They're one of my favorite fantasy races, and today on the world building stream, we're gonna be just mainly talking about dwarves and their funeral beliefs, funereal customs and traditions. Just getting his meat. Okay. There's not one yet. There should be. That could be a cool thing to build. Design subclass. So, let's see. The question is, do they have the funeral right when the person dies? Or do they have the funeral when the Gulyavari arrive? I kind of think it's better if they have the funeral is planned for for the Gulyavari's arrival, not for the actual, like, sort of moment of death. I'm toying with this idea. What about the notion that, like, you're not allowed... No, you'd have to do that. You have to go and like, acknowledge them. So they're laid in state, but I don't think that they're laid in the sarcophagus because they need to build it, right? So the body is placed somewhere where it can be worshipped and venerated, where it can be respected and venerated. Dwarves come at their own times. Dwarves... Yeah, I think you're exactly right, Christopher, and we're going to get there in a second. Dwarves come at their own pace, pay their respects in peace and quiet. Everything is somber, respectful, etc. Once the Gulyavari arrive, the body is placed in the sarcophagus. Boy, here I go again. Why can't I ever spell this? Sorry. I'll get in my brain about it. It's sarcophagus. I was going to put an extra G in there. Sarcophagus. Sarcophagus. And taken away. Once the Gulyavari have left, the party begins. So I think it has kind of like an Irish wake like tone, right? That like everything is very like bleak and somber and like reverent when they're there and the body is still there. And then kind of like when they're gone, there's this like explosion, this release of tension, and it's all about telling stories and drinking and getting in contests. And like I even like the idea of like exaggerated lies and people being like there's like a tradition where you tell boasts or like untrue stories. Yeah, I could see that. The dwarves are very musically they're interesting. I think when they have two forms of music. Like in their instrumental music is extremely rhythmic and repetitive. It's kind of like the fantasy equivalent of like techno. It's like they like rhythms and they like combinations of instruments, but it's not very lyrical. Their singing though, which is separate from their instrumentation, is very soulful, and it's like just kind of like the sound that your body releases when it's working or when it feels an emotion. It's just like venting steam. Is kind of how I describe it, right? Oh, I love that, Shadowrunner. Yeah, during that time, the bard or the priest of Kavish. Oh, yeah, great. Okay. During this time, a priest of Kavish is either summoned, because they don't tend to live in holes. They tend to wander around, but some of the bigger clans will just always have one or two of them around. Is either summoned or assigned to the dead person. And they spend this time asking questions and learning about them. Asking questions or learning about them. And then once the Gulyavari have left, the party begins. So I like the idea of... Let's see. Yeah, the steady beat of the anvil, bell, and drum. Yeah, they also really like horns because it's like metal, right? But once the Gulyavari have left, the party begins. It's much rowdier, more wild. Yeah, Jose's got it. Lo, behold my father. All right, more wild and tempestuous. That's Ibn Fadlan's account, right, of the Rus wedding that he saw on the Volga. Tempestuous. I don't know, boasting and singing and telling stories. telling stories. So I think there's like a game where everyone tells an exaggerated or outrageous story about the deceased person, and the bard must guess which ones are accurate. No, let me flip it, because I liked the inversion of that, but I think it's better if the bard spends the time learning them, right? Where the bard tells exaggerated or outrageous stories about the deceased, and everyone in the clan either acclaims or shouts down the story. It's kind of like 2 truths and a lie, right? Like 2 truths and a lie. Like, the point is that you're supposed to like catch the bard, right? The bard tells this grand story, and it's so huge and dramatic. And sometimes it is true, right? Like if this is a dwarf with particularly great deeds, yeah, the harder it is to tell fact from fiction, the greater the dwarf is presumed to be. An underachieving dwarf has only lies and exaggerations, right? There's like this element of when they die, if it's kind of like nothing good could be said of them, right? It's like a eulogy for a crappy person. That's kind of interesting. Yeah. I think it's about memory. I don't know that it's necessarily about looking forward. Tells exaggerated or outrageous stories about the deceased. I think their like works are displayed. Everyone gets drunk and cries and remembers. But it's like Kavish, like his death never lies, and Hemdall. Oh yeah, that's interesting. Seen as a competition between Kavish and Hemdall. What I like about this is this idea that that Kavish is only concerned with the memory of them, not with their actual body or their person, right? That's all for Umbor and all of those gods. Kavish is only concerned with how the clan will think of them or remember them, right? And I love the subtlety of like, every funeral is meant to be like a celebration of this person's accomplishments, but you can have like dwarves who don't have as much like to celebrate, right? So they're not, their stories are largely exaggerations, and it's this kind of like subtle thing of like, this person wasn't a great dwarf, you know? They're maybe like, they're always acclaimed like they were, but I like the idea that it's not always, you know what I mean? Like it's yeah, that like that's the kind of like not a lot of people showed up, right? Is that like a lot of the deeds were made up, right? They didn't have a lot of real deeds. Okay, that's cool. I think that's basically the funeral. Like, I don't think it's too much more complicated than that. I wonder if there's like a will reading as well. Like, do they do kind of the estate stuff right there? I could see there being betting. I like your idea, Jose. I'm trying to figure out how to incorporate it, right? Like, because I see them talking about the things that they make in the afterlife. But the question is just like, it's a game of BS. Yeah, exactly. It's totally a game of BS. Yeah, I love that. You're exactly right, Jose. I like the idea of inheritance usually skews to the apprentice rather than to the like children. But I like the idea that, especially if as you know that you're going to die, if you kind of start to make items, right? Like they go through dwarves Like I like the idea of like a raucous, drunken will reading. You know, that it's all about like handing out gifts. Gifts. Dividing up who will get what creations from the deceased dwarf. You know, that like he made this great axe and he wanted you to have it, and he made these great tongs and he wanted you to have them, right? That like, and everyone's like cheering, and there's like, you know, it's also a great mechanism for jealousy, right? Like again, that's what all will readings are like, right? Great mechanism for jealousy. A funerary Christmas, yeah. Mechanism for jealousy, right? And greed. Yeah, I think that's cool. Okay, that feels good to me. This is a lot of drinking and boasts and stories and stuff. All right, so yeah, we're almost done with my stuff here. We have one more category. We have about 45 minutes left, so we might end a little early this time. I think this didn't balloon in the same way that the that the marriage one did. Kind of nice, intimate little chat. So my last category here, unless you guys have other categories or other questions, feel free to throw those in the chat if you do, is about resurrection. So my first instinct is that, like, if Umbor is solely responsible for bringing dwarves back from the dead, resurrection should be seen as his province solely. Comes with a seal. Okay, Jose says maybe each inheritance can be within a sealed box, so they get greedy for either the big or the small boxes. Oh, that's cool. Are the inheritances in sealed boxes? So no one knows what they're given until they get home. Like, you're not allowed to open it there, right? Because, yeah, that like breeds jealousy and suspicion too, right? I really like that, Jose. Suspicion. You know, someone gets a huge one, someone gets a small one, but it's actually super valuable, right? Even though it's really tiny. Yeah, that like it's meant to like, because like the idea is to keep the dwarves from squabbling with each other over who gets what. But all this did was like engender suspicion. Yeah. So, yes, this is what I was going to say, Shadowrunner, about Umbor and Resurrections. So that's my first initial take, right? Like, oh, yeah, sorry, I got to go back. That's really good. They can exchange the gifts. But they may end up screwing themselves, right? And that's seen as being greedy, right? It's seen as being like, they might do it secretly, right? I don't think that they're supposed to do it, but they do it sometimes. And then, because it's seen as like going against the will of the person who gave out the gifts. Okay, so Umbor is solely responsible for bringing dwarves back. So that's my question, is that, A, these are like beliefs that traditionalist dwarves hold. So dwarves in the rest of the world probably don't care, right? Like they might not observe all of these traditions, whether it's about funerals or death or whatever. Like if you're a dwarf, you die outside of Coombe, you're shit out of luck, I think, right? Yeah, it's a key or a scroll to a storage vault. Exactly. A big box is just a big empty box, or like a big block of granite or something like that, right? Like it's super heavy, but you can't do anything with it. So I think like what you could say is that resurrection magic can exist, right? And the idea is that you are directly entreating Umbor, right? Like to like basically lend his power early, right? Ooh, what if we do that? So resurrection magic exists. It's an entreaty to Umbor for him to use his magic early. But it comes at a cost. Not only can you not be resurrected again, but if you die, you die. Dwarves who are resurrected must find their way. Resurrected early in life, must find their own way. Yeah, that's true. The spirit has to be willing. I think you can do it almost the opposite. Like, Umbor has to be willing, right? Umbor has to let you do it. I like the idea that all dwarves get one resurrection, you know, and like most of that is assumed to happen after death, right? And erases their memory? Yeah, you could. They're dwarves. I feel like they hold on to their memories. Dwarves who are resurrected in life must find their own way to the Jandor, which is deemed to be almost impossible. So, like, I think that dwarves can do it. You can like ask Umbor to lend you, like, to relight the fire, but once it's relit, if it goes out again, it can't ever be relit again. Umbor has like one resurrection functionally in each dwarf, and it's believed to take place after you die, right? You die, he takes you into his hold, and there he resurrects you once you're already inside. So you can use that. You can do a resurrection spell if you die, but then it creates this extra trouble of like, you may not make it to Jean Hole, right? Although they choose which memories they could give up in order to keep living. That's kind of cool. So is this possible? Can a dwarf who is not guided by the Ghoul Yavari make their way into Jean Hole? I don't know about that question, because like it obviously would have come up. I think it makes the dwarves really reticent to use resurrection to sort of solve their problems, right? Because they're worried about it. It's not like it's never happened before. They've done it, but it kind of comes with this assumption that you basically won't go to heaven, right? You might be able to if you can like find your way there. I guess this is maybe another Ghoul Yavari question, is like, what stops what stops someone from following the Ghoul Yavari into back to Zamadan and into the Jandor, right? Like, if you could, if they physically walk back to heaven, why can't you just walk back and follow them in? If it's somewhere physical, you can, but no one. Yeah, I think that's interesting, Jose, but no one who has ever returned. Did they make it to Jandor or to Jean Hole? It's unknown. Yeah, maybe they phase through rock. Yeah. They can phase. Ooh, that's kind of cool if they can. They can earth glide. Because that would mean that they could like easily get to these holds, right? It would shorten the amount of time it would take them if they can phase through stone. Yeah, they have earth glide. They have like burrow speeds and earth glide. I love that, Jose. Yep. Gives them this extra, like, kind of spooky, ghost-like thing, right? there are skeletons of dwarves littered around Zamadan, seeking the entrance to Jandor. Seeking the entrance to Janhol. Right, like, that's what I like too, is that then if it's called the Secret Mountain, then that's what they're referring to. It's not just that it's like a mountain full of secrets, it's the mountain whose entrance is secret, right? Zamadan, the secret mountain. Yeah. I think that that's everything. I really like the resurrection thing. And I love Shadowrunner's point that, like, they might tell other people not to do it, right? Like, okay, it's the risk isn't worth it, right? That they have this inherent aversion. It's this, like, devil's bargain. You can do it, but it might, result in a much worse penalty down the line. I think that's cool. Okay, let's go over this. When a dwarf dies, they are laid in state, right? For an unspecified length of time. During that time, a priest of Kavish or a bard or a skald or a storyteller arrives and begins to sort of question the clan about the person and their deeds and learns all they can. The rest of the clan venerates this fallen person during that time, kind of studying their life and reviewing their great deeds, kind of like the bard. And then eventually the Gulyavari arrive, and the Gulyavari are constructs that were made by ancient dwarves that are sort of modeled after dead dwarves, and they have the ability to phase through stone, and they are sort of programmed to retrieve the dead and bring them back to Janhol, bring them back to Zamadan through Jandor, the hidden mountain. When the Gulyavari arrive, they are loaded into a sarcophagus, which has been built either by the apprentice or by the loved ones of the deceased person, depending on how much that dwarf had saved up of their yield. That determines what kind of sarcophagus it is. Is it made of stone? Is it made of iron? Is it made of gold? Is it made of gems? It all depends on how much wealth they have saved away. They are stored in the sarcophagus, covered with ash, right? Ooh, that's cool. Yeah, Shadow makes the point. It makes Ragnarok scarier. Hordes of fallen dwarves wandering around after the world starts to crumble. Yeah, that's neat. So then they are carried by the Gulyavari out of the hold and taken towards Zamadan. Meanwhile, in the hold, the priest of Kavish throws this lavish celebration. Everyone gets really drunk. They start telling stories about their friend. They play a sort of like two truths and a lie game where the bard is trying to spin these stories of the deceased person, and the rest of the clan has to kind of like shoot them down, right? It's a game of BS. They also have a will reading where the deceased person gives out a bunch of presents in these like unmarked boxes that they want to all of their friends, and this breeds like suspicion and confusion as they're all trying to guess what's inside their boxes and what's inside someone else's box. Meanwhile, the Gulyavari take the sarcophagus with them all the way back to Zamadan, and they pass through Jandor, the hidden door, into Janhol, the secret hall, and there the body is allegedly, this is all at this point myth, is opened from the sarcophagus and given to Umbor, and Umbor breathes new life into them, rekindles their forge fire. Ooh, yeah, the one crazy dwarf that saved up a horde of Lusterine. That's neat. Rekindles their forge fire, and there they live an eternal life inside Janhol. At the end of days, what's called the Shattering, when Yar begins to bust out of its chains and tear the earth apart, the dwarves believe that all their creations will come to naught, and they believe that the dead, their fallen masters, parents, lovers, will come back to them, right, and will guide them back into Janhol. Those dwarves who have been resurrected and can't come back, don't have anyone to bring them back, kind of wander around in almost like a pre-flood-esque sort of situation where they know the world's going to end and it sort of drives them to madness. Eventually the world is torn open, and all the dwarves that weren't resurrected are safe in Janhol while Yogg kind of continues to swirl in its malice and its chaos outside. Yeah, great. Those are our Dwarven death customs. So yeah, we're done, really. It's 7:30. We're about a half an hour early. This is kind of a shorter one. But we will be back again next week with another world building stream. I think next week. Actually, let me look. I think that's the 25th. Yeah, I think I can do next week, and then I might be off the week after that. But next week I'll be back. I think we'll do another 2 levels of Truth Throne. So if y'all have been here for that stream, we'll just keep delving deeper and deeper into Truth Throne. We're almost to the bottom of it. I think 2 more streams to finish that up, and then we'll do 1 stream that's like what happened in Truth Throne, right? Kind of a timeline thing. So at least 3 more Truth Throne streams. But next week it'll be that one. Thanks again, everyone, for your suggestions. There's a lot of stuff in here that I thought was great. I thought I really love the notion of the census. I really like the notion of them. Oh yeah, the Gullivari like phasing through stone was Jose's idea, which was awesome. Mummifying the body with the noble gases is cool. Yeah, the Mad Fallen Dwarves end up fighting Yogg. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. I really liked the iron sarcophagus idea that you had, Shadowner, about like dwarves who die in battle. You know, the ideas that their soul is trapped in their body, we talked about. The shattering, it was your idea, Jose, to have maybe Zamut like hand Hemdall a spear and a shield and say, you know, turn and fight, kind of a thing. Yeah, I liked the notion of the dwarves coming back. Kavish's role was really important. It was your idea, Christopher, to have it be this big lively thing, which I think is totally on the money. I really liked Jose's suggestion about the sealed boxes, which was really neat. And yeah, it was you who came up with a bunch of these these resurrection ideas, Shadowner. That was also really cool. So yeah, all good stuff. I wouldn't know where this campaign would be without you guys. Thanks again so much for tuning in. We'll be back next Sunday. Sorry this was a shorter one, but it's a simpler topic, and I thought we crushed it. So thanks again for all of your genius and your brilliance, and I will see you guys next time. Until then, till the next adventure.